Howdy folks, welcome back to another Out of Spec Renew video. And today we're going to be looking at this 2023 Tesla Model 3 Performance. Customer complaint is the car has a coolant leak from the rear, so we're going to take a look at that and see what all needs to be addressed on it. So as you can see, I've already got the car up on the lift here, and I actually pulled the bottom aero shield off. So we've got that off of here. Here we've got our rear drive unit, of course. And when the car first showed up on the tow truck, I could see that there was kind of a streak of wetness. You can kind of see it on the bottom of this lower control arm cover here. So I knew the coolant leak was somewhere from this side. And if we take a look up here, you can see we've actually got this coolant tube that's been smashed into the edge of the battery here. And the wheel liner is a little bit damaged there. The customer said that he thought he ran something over, so I suspect that whatever he ran over ended up kind of getting sucked between the tire and the wheel well there, and it just shoved that coolant line into the battery. I can't tell if there's further damage ahead of it, but it kind of seems like the whole tube got pushed forward potentially. Oh yeah, there we go. So I actually was able to pull it back a little. So yeah, that whole tube got pushed forward, and yeah, it just pinched it and punctured a hole in it there. So that should be relatively easily replaceable. Whoops, I dropped my light. So that tube runs all the way along here, goes up over the top of the motor, and terminates right here on the heat exchanger for the drive unit cooling. So, I'm going to see what it's actually going to cost to replace that thing. But the other complaints that occurred after this happened is apparently the pumps on the car were just screaming, which I wouldn't be too terribly surprised if we might have a damaged pump from running dry. And the screen in the car is also completely dark. The screen won't come on. I don't know if that's because the car has gone into kind of a low power state to prevent the car computer from being damaged, because it is water cooled on these, so that it might be a temperature or a thermal issue where if it sees there's no coolant in the system, it shuts that off to prevent itself from overheating. So anyways, I'm gonna see if I can plug in with Toolbox, figure out what kind of info we can gather as far as that stuff goes, and I'll see what we can do about replacing this tube. Alright, so with the screen dark like this, I can't even connect Toolbox to the car. It keeps failing. So, plan B, I am going to attempt to do a reset jet on this car. I'm going to disconnect the 12-volt battery and the high voltage interlock loop and try and reset the car and see if we can get it to kind of reboot again. Alrighty, since we don't have screen access and we don't have a key fob or anything for this car, to get into the frunk and disconnect the 12-volt battery, we're going to have to open it the manual way. So to do that, we're going to pop out the little tow hook cover here. I just have a little plastic pry tool so the paint doesn't get damaged. There we go. So that's that pulled out. And then behind it, we have these two wires. If I pull it out a little further, I can see which one is red and which one's black. And I'm just going to take a 12-volt battery here. This is just a Milwaukee M12. And we're just going to jump these two terminals, positive and negative, and that'll open our frunk. Just like so. And someone's actually been in here already, probably to maybe disconnect the 12-volt battery? I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that real quick. So in order to do that, well, let's see, I'll bring you guys in closer where you can see. So of course this has the lithium-ion low-voltage battery. And to disconnect it, we're just going to pull up on this green tab. And then this black piece slides out, and then we can just disconnect it like so. And then to do the high voltage disconnect, we're going to unplug the connector under the rear seat. Alright, so to remove the seat cushion, basically kind of near the middle of the cushions on either side, there's sort of a little tab underneath that you push on, and it'll unlatch the seat cushion. There we go. And then I can kind of just pick up on it. And I'm not even going to fully remove it, but I want to get access to the data connector on top of the PDM here. This thing's pretty warm, probably because it's been running with no coolant, but I'm going to unplug that. That'll open the battery contactors. Alright, reconnecting the low voltage battery. Okay, I heard contactors, and the pumps are ramping up. Let's see if we get signs of life inside. I suspect we will. It might take a minute for it to boot up, though. Still no screen. Let's see if we can at least try and reconnect here with toolbox. Well, before the car would drive, but as of right now, I'm not hearing it release parking brake when I try and put it into gear, which is not a fantastic sign. But it might be doing that because of the limited coolant. Alrighty, I'll come back to this when I have another update. Alrighty, so after an extended period of letting the car sleep, it looks like we're getting the screen to reboot here. Potentially. At least it lit up there for a second. Oh, and I get noise. Awesome. Okay, good to see. Oh, and now it went dark again. Alright, I'm going to very quickly try to get this into service mode. Service. Okay, enter. And I want to try and unlock the gateway. Alright, we're unlocked. I can turn off the blinker now. Let's try and connect with toolbox here. Look at that. We're connected. Alright, I want to see what we have for service alerts. We've got coolant level low, pump stopped, coolant level low. We've got latched faults. Oh, okay, so this is a latched fault for the battery pump motor experiencing a short. And powertrain pump experiencing a short. Prevents the motor controller from driving. Okay, so, and these are latched faults, so they might be clearable, but that doesn't bode well for our coolant pumps. Washer fluid, pump stopped, pump stopped. Okay, so I think it looks like that's all that we've really got there as far as alerts. In service fix, under just regular service, we've got not all system start conditions are met. Autopilot unavailable, probably because we have no coolant. Unrecognized can, destructive reset. That's because we had the car disconnected. Okay. And then, yeah, coolant level low. Alright, so it looks like that's a bit of a plus there. Ignore and continue to drive. Make sure we can still go into gear and all, which we can. Alright, I actually have the new coolant hose on the way for this. It'll take a couple days to arrive. But given the pump faults, I'm going to guess that we might have to put some pumps in this thing. Once that coolant hose arrives, I'll go ahead and install it. We'll refill the coolant system, try to purge the air out if possible, but those pumps might have to be addressed first. Alrighty, we're back at it again here a few days later on the Model 3 here, and we've got parts. I've got our coolant hose, that's the one that's busted there in the back that we took a look at, and I've got a pair of coolant pumps in this box right here, all packaged up, nice and new. So we're going to go ahead and start tearing this thing apart. First thing I'm probably going to do is get the hose on here, and then we'll work on getting the pumps swapped out. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and get to replacing our coolant hose. It's a little bit tight working quarters in here, so I'm not really sure how much I'm really going to be able to show. But this fitting right up here is the one that we need to disconnect. This is actually the heat exchanger on the drive unit. So this is exactly what it sounds like. It's a heat exchanger that exchanges its heat from the coolant to the oil. So it's basically just a coolant to oil heat exchanger. And in order to pop this thing off of here, we have this little metal tab that should clip out just like that. And I should be able to just pull on it. Alright, well, the hose is fully disconnected. There's just some clips holding it on there. And there's a couple of other ones I'm going to have to disconnect. But we should be all good there. So let me kind of reposition here. Over here is where we're going to find our other fitting that's damaged. Right here, and you can see where the hose is pinched, as we discovered before. So I'm basically just going to disconnect this one in the same way. Just has that same little metal clip on it. Metal clip kept popping in on me, so I just removed it completely there. There we go. Now it popped loose. So now this end is off. And now I can go through and just remove all of the places where it's clipped on. So it's clipped on right there. It's clipped on in a couple places here. And then it goes up and around over the top of the motor. There's our other end. There's a clip over there that I kind of got mostly disconnected. And I think there might be one or two on top of the motor that are going to be a little tricky. I don't think I'm going to be able to show those on camera, so I'll probably just bring you guys back when the new tube is in. Alrighty, so the new coolant tube is installed. Goes all the way around here. We've got two clips on the back side there that I'm not sure if I showed before. And then there's actually one right up on top up there, which is not possible to see. And then it comes around and connects back to the heat exchanger right up there. So that part's done. I'll go ahead and bring the car down and we can get started on installing the pumps. Alrighty, so next step here is we've got to go ahead and pull the front tub out to actually get to our super manifold, which houses the pumps. So there's basically just a handful of fasteners that hold this thing in. Alrighty, so our two pumps are on the back side of the super manifold here. So I'm actually going to remove this other piece of ducting, which basically just clips on underneath there. Just give it a good tug. And then just got to kind of wedge it out of here. Like so. And the pumps are actually pretty easy to get to here. Not too difficult. They're just stacked one on top of the other. Each one has a little red locking tab on the connectors that you pull back on. And then I should be able to just push down on the tab. to get the connector to come loose. At least that was my assumption. Oh, there we go. Oh, I just had to pull on the tab a little bit more. So there's the upper one, which is the battery, I believe. Could be powertrain. Doesn't really matter. They're basically both the same pumps. And then to actually get those out, it's I think 4 T20s for each pump, all the way around the perimeter. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, so 4 T20s on each one. And I do want to pay attention to the direction in which they're clocked. Looks like the little breather valve on this one is basically at the top. And then on the lower one here, the little breather is pointing towards the passenger side here. So let me grab a T20 here real quick. Alrighty, I've got our upper pump here fully unbolted. I should be able to just give it a little bit of a wiggle and it pops loose. And there it is, one deluxe coolant pump. Did I miss an O-ring here somewhere? I don't think that I did. Although it looks like it should have one. In any case, there's that coolant pump. So let's go ahead and take a peek at this thing. Alrighty, so here's our old coolant pump that we just removed, and you can kind of see the impeller in there. If I take a screwdriver here, and I stick it in there and try to push on that impeller, this thing is locked up solid. I cannot get it to move. If I set that one aside and I take our brand new pump here, I can easily turn the impeller here with the screwdriver. And that's pretty much what happens to these pumps if they run dry without coolant for too long, is they basically just overheat and get seized up. I actually was right. That other one is supposed to have an O-ring there. It must have fallen out when I removed it. These do come with new hardware and everything when buying the kit straight from Tesla. So I'll go ahead and get this thing set up to go back on there. I'll make sure the O-ring stays on. Got to be careful when tightening these up, as the screws just thread right into the plastic super manifold housing. So it's not like it's a normal threaded bolt. It's just basically self-tapping into plastic, so it could be pretty easy to strip out. Alright, let's go ahead and get this thing on. Alright, before I get that upper new pump installed, I just want to show a little bit better where it goes. So we're here right next to the coolant manifold on the back side of the super manifold assembly, and this empty hole right here is the pump we just took out, and then the one down below is the other one we've got to remove. I'm actually going to take that one out first and replace it, and then we'll do the upper one. That way this one's not in our way. But you can see those screws do just thread right into the plastic. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Doesn't seem super robust for serviceability, as the screws might strip out pretty easily, but I suppose it's kind of fine. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get that one down there swapped out, and then we'll get our upper one installed as well. And then we should be ready to go ahead and refill the cooling system and get this car out the door. Alrighty, so now it's time to refill our cooling system. So I've got a vacuum fill set for this. Since we are pretty much empty, it's really going to be the only way to get a real effective coolant fill here. So I'll get our adapter on the reservoir. I'll hook that up. And then I've got just a 5-gallon bucket here full of pre-mixed coolant. The total capacity for the cooling system on the Model 3 is about It's just a little under 4 gallons. So that's actually what I have in the bucket here is 4 gallons of pre-mixed coolant. All right, so our vacuum has settled right about where I want it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the valve, and our cooling system is going to start drawing coolant in. And basically what I'm going to wait for it to do is wait until it either drains the whole bucket, which it should come pretty close, or once it starts running out the overflow tube here is pretty much when I know that we'll be done. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and power the car back up again. We'll turn off the coolant fill routine, which I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, but the car is in the coolant fill drain routine, which makes all the valves open and whatnot. But yeah, so once this is finished, we'll probably do a pump identification, and then we'll do a coolant air purge cycle, and then we should be pretty much done. But yeah, just going to continue to let this thing pull the coolant out of here. And actually I've lost all vacuum here. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Pull a bit more vacuum here. I'm going to call that good enough for now. I started pulling air when I wasn't paying attention, so there we go. Alrighty, so I think our coolant refill process is about as close as I'm going to get for now. I'm going to go ahead and try and let this drain out. Alrighty, so we've got the car booted back up. You can see our 2 pumps here are both spinning up. I'm actually going to run a pump identification here real quick. Alright, our coolant pumps have been identified. Now what I'm going to do is run a coolant air purge routine. And that'll basically just run the pumps at full speed, and it'll move the valves around to try and purge all of the air out of the system. In the meantime, I will keep an eye on the coolant level in the reservoir and top it up as needed. Alrighty, our coolant air purge routine is running. And as a matter of fact, our coolant level there is getting pretty low. I'm going to go ahead and top up my funnel here. I should have been a little bit more prepared and started with that full. I'm just going to let that sit there with the plug in it because we're still above the nominal mark for our coolant level, but I can see air bubbles that keep popping out of there. So yeah, I'm basically just going to keep an eye on this for the next 10 or 15 minutes and make sure that our reservoir stays topped up. And once it's all done, I'll bring you guys back. Alrighty, so our coolant air purge routine is completed. I can still hear the pumps running down there, though certainly not at full speed. Let's go ahead and hop back in and make sure that we don't have any alerts or anything present for the cooling system. Looks like we're green all around here. If I go just to the main service screen here and click service alerts, yeah, all that I have here is just some TPMS warnings and low washer fluid. So that's pretty much it. So I think this car is pretty much good to go. All that I got to do is get everything put back together. And yeah, probably work on that tomorrow morning since it's getting a little bit late. And then take the car for a little test drive before I get all the underhood plastic back in there, because I do want to make sure that we don't have a bunch of air purge out of it. Sometimes after driving it can work some air pockets loose. So I'll join you guys tomorrow. Alrighty, well that's going to be a wrap on this one. I went ahead this morning and buttoned everything up, made sure the coolant was topped up, and took the car on a quick test drive, make sure everything was good, which it is. And now this car is ready for the customer to pick up. So anyways, thanks for watching, and tune in for more repairs in the future.